How's
John,
everyone
how you
doing?
doing?
Hey, Matt.
Just wondering with George's contract, the amount that he brings to the team, the importance he has to the team, and kind of the level that tight ends have been paid through the years. What was your philosophy in, breaking out of that mold a little bit, but also kind of recognizing what the comps were for that position?
Yeah, I think that's what made it so challenging. I think I had an interesting perspective personally because I played a position that had lagged behind in terms of getting paid, and I felt like the position and the nature of the position had changed. At one point, I became the high water mark at safety for about 24 hours before Brian Dawkins did. But you also kind of feel a responsibility to the game, to the other players at your position, and so I knew we were dealing with some interesting dynamics there, and I knew as a result it would be a challenge. And there never was a challenge in terms of the like-mindedness, the the shared motivation to get it done. It was just finding where is that spot, because typically these things kind of fall right into place. Here we had to kind of create that, and therein lied the challenge. And I just want to thank first of all George and his family for their patience throughout it. I obviously want to thank the York family for making it all possible. And Jack Becta did a tremendous job. It wasn't an easy negotiation, but everyone stayed, positive and resolute through the whole thing, that we were going to find a way to get it done, and we did that, and that makes everyone happy.
John, can you share kind of when a breakthrough occurred? Because it just seemed from everything people were hearing, it was kind of like nothing was imminent. I don't know, broadly or specifically, can you share maybe what pushed the ball forward finally?
Love your shirt, by the way. That's my team. But listen, in terms of a breakthrough, I think there were a lot of breakthroughs throughout the process. In the last couple weeks, we felt like we were drawing nearer. Jack did a great job of fighting for his client, and I think he knew he had some time. In terms of deadlines, there really wasn't one on this because George was under contract for this year. But I think everybody felt maybe not a need, but a want to get this done before we stepped on there with helmets, 11 on 11, and all that. And so I felt confident that we were making progress throughout, and really felt like in the last 2 weeks really that any day could have been the day, and we had movement on the day. It eventually got agreed to, and so I guess that would be the breakthrough. But there were a bunch of breakthroughs throughout the process.
George just spoke to us about how excited he is that Jordan Reed is, in the tight ends room with him, on the field with him. How much of that addition was about George, and you have such a huge investment in him now, about sort of longevity for him and perhaps lightening his load a little bit, for this season coming up?
Well, we've talked about that, Matt. We've talked about having a complement to George. First of all, schematically, I think it's because of the nature of that position and the different ways in which you can use them with our staff, how creatively they use the tight end. I think it's just an advantage for us. And anytime you get a player in the ilk of a Jordan Reed, and you can come to an agreement and feel like health-wise it's worth the I guess the inherent risk involved. It was a good decision for us, also to protect George. But George is going to play, and he's going to play a lot of football. He doesn't like coming off the field, and it's hard to take him off the field because he is so complete. But it doesn't just stop with Jordan Reed. I mean, I think another year, the development of Ross Dwelley, who really showed us what a valuable football player he is to this team, drafting Charlie Warner, who we really have a great vision for as a staff. I think now we have some compliments. We feel much better about that position, and that's a really good feeling.
Hey, John, I know you just got this one done, but obviously you got a lot of guys who are due up after this year, and Fred Warner's coming soon. I'm just curious, how much does having some cost certainty with George help you in that regard, and how do you kind of go about prioritizing what comes next?
Yeah, well, I think we're going to exhale a little before we think about anyone else. But, it's a great issue to have when you got a lot of players worthy of being paid. That's a good thing. We're doing our jobs right. And, I think, you used the word cost certainty. That was another element of challenge throughout this thing in the midst of a pandemic. Really not knowing without an agreement between the owners and the PA exactly where the cap numbers were going to fall. We still don't know that, but we got a better idea, and that helped us craft this deal, frankly. So now I think we go back to the drawing board and start prioritizing and looking at, when people are coming due, and just like we always do, looking three years out, looking 2 years out. And so thinking about the present and always thinking about the future.
Hey, John, this is Chris Biederman. You just mentioned maybe having a little bit better of an idea of what the salary cap situation next year could look like. Are you optimistic that that a TV deal could get done and there might be more revenue, that you might not be at that $175 million floor next year?
I wouldn't say optimistic. I'm hopeful, I think, I've talked to a lot of different people as to that point is, if there is a new TV deal, does it kick in right away, or is that down the line? I think there's new media rights and such that might kick in right away. So I think, we do know that 175 is the floor, and hopefully it's higher than that. But I think we have to start preparing for the worst case scenario that 175 is the number, and that's exactly what we've done.
Hey, John, it's Cam. What does Jimmy Garoppolo and George Kittle, how do they work so well together that you see, and going forward, how that relationship can grow?
Well, they're both extremely hard workers, Cam. They're both extremely talented and gifted. But that's when you have a chance to be special as a player, when your work ethic kind of matches with, the prerequisite that you're a talented guy. And I think they both love the game. Jimmy brings a little bit of a linebacker approach to the position, and I think George brings a little bit of a linebacker approach to the tight end position. And so I think they kind of see eye to eye on how the game should be played. I think, as your shared experiences grow, you continue to grow. But they seemingly, much like Jimmy had early his first year with Trent Taylor, just kind of intuitively know what each other's thinking, and that's a great advantage for us. And I think they're both really good players, and we're fortunate to have them.
Hey, John, it's Jennifer. Can you detail what that linebacker mentality would be for a quarterback and a tight end?
Well, I used to play quarterback, all the way through my junior year of college. I switched over, and I just think innately, I think a lot about Jimmy. I think early on, we talked a lot about just what a good teammate he is, and I think quarterbacks oftentimes, because there's so much demanded of that position, they don't get to be as much of one of the guys, and their job is different. So much is asked of them, and so it's hard for them to connect as well as other positions. But Jimmy kind of just innately gets that. That's who he is, and I think a lot of that goes to his family, but a lot of it, he loves every part of the game, the physical part of the game even, and I think George, obviously, you watch him play. And he probably wouldn't like me saying it's a linebacker mentality, but that's kind of how I think as a defensive player. And I love the way he plays the game. You can tell, one of the most, I battled against him hard during my career, but Brett Favre was the guy I probably respected most because he had so much damn fun playing the game. And you're in an intense moment, and you look over and he's doing the YMCA in the huddle or something while you're at Green Bay. And George is very reminiscent to me of that. You know, in the midst of intense and tough and tight situations, you just see an exuberance with him that's special. I think that's contagious. And when you're like that, you better be a really good player. We're very fortunate that he is. He's a great player.
Hi, John. It's David. I one more about the negotiations. When you know the cap is uncertain and you look forward to 2021, 2022, was it possible to move some of the cap hit back to a time when you think that the cap might be higher in the future? And was that something that might have caused this to take a little bit longer as far as negotiations went?
That's where I think we're most thankful that Jack Becta and the Kittles kind of approached this as a partner of ours. Look, they were going to get what they deserved, but there was a spirit of, hey, can you work with us? In particular in 21, we needed their assistance in making the because of that worst case scenario, the cap hit something that we could take on, and they were great. Parag and his group, Brian Hampton, are so bright, and so working through these things with them, and Jack was great working with us to the point where his client, it's certainly not a backloaded contract. It's but there's some creative things that were done within the contract to make it such that it behooves everybody. George wants to win championships, and he knew there was an element to that as well, and so he didn't give in on anything, but he did work with us to make it good for everybody. And that's what I feel great about this deal, because I really truly, that's what you want in a deal, especially with a player of this magnitude that means so much to your team for so many reasons. You want it to be a win-win, and you want him and his family and everybody on their side to come out feeling like, this was a win for us, but I think also a win for the other side. And I believe that's how everybody feels on this deal.
Hey, John, in these unique times, how much have you guys looked about just kind of thinking outside the box, especially with some of the younger players, and not only have them cross-train at different positions, but cross-train on different sides of the ball? Is that something that you guys have looked into as you guys get closer to the regular season, on how you might be able to compensate for some of the, the possibilities that could crop up? And if so, which players would you consider prime candidates for that?
Well, I guess we were just talking. Kittle and Garoppolo could play linebacker. No, I'm just joking. We have not done that, but we have. I mean, we're challenging ourselves, and it's kind of like the Wild West, Matt. There's been we have a new 16-person practice squad with 6 veterans, and so we've challenged everybody in the building. Hey, we want you to come up with ideas. And there's no wrong answers. We're looking for the best. How do you comprise a practice squad for all the possibilities that could happen during these times? And that's where you can gain an edge. And fortunately, we have a really a great bunch of individuals, both in the coaching staff and in the personnel staff, that are incredibly bright, who take a lot of pride in what they do, and from their perspective are coming up with great ideas on how we best do that, and then we put them all together, and we'll come up with a really good plan. But that's ongoing, thinking of creative ideas, preparing for worst-case scenarios, more than anything, trying to mitigate risk, and our staff, our players have done a tremendous job of doing that. Frankly, our setup here, sharing our practice field with our stadium, allows us to have more space, and so but it still took a lot of hard work, but that's what's most important. But yes, you have to be creative. We haven't gone so far. I don't think we're cross-training anyone, offense and defense, but that's a fun idea to think of who may be capable of doing it.
That's all I had.
Hey, John, Jake Hutchinson. With that worst case scenario and the cap potentially dropping significantly, and the reality that veterans might have to get cut with expensive contracts, do you think there might be an increased premium on draft picks in the coming years?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. We always put a premium on draft picks, but the other side of that, Jake, is the inherent challenges with college football and a lot of conferences being likely not happening this year. How you take that into effect. So I think there'll be more challenges to scouting players than ever before. But at the same point, I think for a team like ours, who's up there against the cap and was budgeting at $220 million on a cap for next year, we're going to have to be creative. We're going to have to really be great in the draft, and that's where the continuity between our coaching staff and our personnel and our process, I think, will really come in handy. I think we've improved at our draft process each and every year. We've got a lot of continuity, a lot of familiarity, and that will be needed this year. And yes, the draft will be incredibly important.
Hey, John, I think the last time we spoke, you hinted that a new GM deal was imminent, and it appears that was right. But is everything official now? Is everything done with that?
Yeah, it is, Matt. I signed. I think I signed 2 weeks ago. Jed and I. Sorry, I got a bug up here. Shook hands, signed the deal, and Bob let me know prior to coming in here that apparently we haven't announced that. And I think a lot of that, that's not what's been on my mind. The approaching season, George's deal, as I told you, I felt like that could happen. This is a players' league. It's about the players. I'm incredibly grateful to the York family that they saw fit, during these times with the amount of time I had left on my deal to extend my contract out. And Kyle and I are, we're having a blast doing this. I think we're making great progress, and so I'm incredibly grateful to the York family. A handshake and a signed contract's good enough for me, but I guess at some point we should probably release something. So that's the answer there.
All right, we got one more with Chris Biederman. Hey, John. Just curious. There are a bunch of tents now on the practice field. I assume those are all for weightlifting. And do you know about how many are out there and how players are responding to using them instead of the normal weightlifting setup?
Yeah, it's Venice Beach North. We love it, and great thought process by Ben Peterson, Dustin Perry, Dustin Little, that whole group, our health and performance staff. There's as part of these COVID protocols, there's how many players can you fit in our weight room per square feet. That's how they're operating here. And so it forced you to be creative. And they came up with a great idea. Again, very thankful to the York family for allowing us to use every resource available to us. And I think the numbers were, had we stayed inside, I think we could have trained 15 players at one time. With the tents, we can train 45 players at a time. And the way we like to do it, and still distance them correctly, and still not compromise the workout. And so, there's the ingenuity of our staff coming in hand, and our players have been really bought in the approach. I think they actually like being outside. Probably wouldn't have been the answer the last 2 days as it's been up towards 100 degrees, but it's I love that kind of thinking, and it's benefiting us. It's not just for show. There's a tangible benefit from that, and job well done by that staff for coming up with that idea.